determine the vision and to make sure that that vision and that mission is implemented. Second is to ensure that we have the best faculty possible, and that is in the world. We're always looking for the best faculty, not just in Maryland, but really in the world, and you'll see that our faculty come from all over. Third is the financial management and making sure that we are solvent and living through the ups and downs of our state budget. I think that's right now. And then to represent the college among other colleges, because ours is the College of Arts and Humanities. There are 14 colleges on the campus, the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences, the College of Engineering, and so they all kind of have this similar structure. They all have deans. And so, as Dean of the College of Arts and Humanities, I'm always involved in representing our interests, our needs among the other deans and to the provost and the president, the senior administration. So that's kind of like a quickie, higher ed administration 101. So let me turn now to the thing that, the first thing I talked about, vision and mission, and talk a little bit about the vision thing. In the College of Arts and Humanities, our motto is be world wise. If you've looked through the material that we've given you, you've seen a booklet in there, a blue booklet called Be World Wise. And I hope if you haven't had a chance to look at it, you'll take some time to look at it. But Be World Wise is the way we seek to express our mission, because our goal is to have you, at the end, you and all of our students in this college, think of themselves not just as citizens of Maryland or citizens of the United States, but citizens of the world. We want you to become globally aware. We want you to understand the relationship between what goes on here and what goes on in the world more broadly. We want you to be able to think critically about those things. We want you to be able to ask incisive and probing questions. We want you to write well. We want you to understand the power and the possibilities of your own creative imagination, because you will have used that, you will have developed it, you will have nurtured it in all of these processes. And these are all things that we think provide the basis for becoming lifelong learners. And being lifelong learners is something that has been a goal for a long time, but it's even more critical in today's rapidly changing world and economy. I always tell people, if you train for something limited and narrow, given the way things are moving today, that will be gone in 2 years. How many iPads, iPods, whatever, how fast does that technology change? So the ability to learn, to think, to write is critical. So let me say a little bit more about the arts and humanities. Humanities. All right, aside from the fact that this is a, everybody knows, does everybody know who Testudo is? Okay, if someone has a Fear the Turtle shirt on right here, so when you look at this slide, other than that one is living people and the other's a statue, what does it suggest about one of the things that makes humans a different kind of animal? Anybody have an idea? Social, okay, and what are they doing in social?
Sharing ideas.
Sharing ideas, and how do they share ideas?
Speaking.
Speaking language, right? Language. Language is one of the key things, and one of the ways we use language, one of the most important things, is that we tell stories. We really tell stories about everything. We tell stories about our ancestors. We create and perform the stories of our families and our cultures. We construct and analyze visual, digital, musical, literary texts, tales drawn from our own imaginations and from the events that we've lived. Some stories are told in words and some in symbols. Literary scholar Jonathan Gottschall has called us the storytelling animal. And he argues that our brains and our psychology works in such a way that stories are the, he uses the word narrative, but are the key ways in which we organize the world around us. So that analyzing, telling, is really the core of the arts and humanities. And that's why I think it's so important if you think about the fact that we are, as human beings, language is the thing that distinguishes us. And our ability to use that language, what you're studying in the arts and humanities, are things that are very basic to culture, to society, to who we are, and what we choose to be. So I want to tell you two stories about the arts and humanities. First is a story about alumni. You're going to hear from alumni later today. But we just finished this event that we have been doing for a number of years. We call it Access to Alumni. And generally, this year, I think some 40 alumni from different fields came to campus, and we had tables, and our students met with them and did networking and found out about fields and careers, and somebody was even talking to somebody about getting a job. So we're promoting that kind of activity. And those alumni, the tables that we had were organized around a number of fields: entrepreneurship, law, government, nonprofits, executive leadership, performing arts, literary, education, media and entertainment, public relations, marketing, to name many of them. So I always meet a lot of alumni in my work as dean, and I'm always struck by how many different fields the alumni from this college are in. So when people say to me, what can you do with a degree in the arts and humanities, I say anything, because our alumni are doing any and everything. The second story I want to tell you is a story about, does everybody know Samsung? The company Samsung, you know, TV. So one of my colleagues who is herself Korean and had been reading, and Samsung is a Korean, South Korean based, I need to make those distinctions, company. She had been reading in the Korean newspaper just last week that Samsung has announced that 20% of their new employees, they're going to hire people with majors in the arts and humanities. They're still going to hire computer programmers, but they're going to hire people with majors in the arts and humanities and train them to write software. Now, why do you think they want people in the arts and humanities? I heard something that sounded... Creativity. Creativity, that's right. They have the creativity. They have historical context, they know about content, they figure they can train them to write the software. But it's the creative thinking that they're really looking for. So I thought that was very interesting, also because there's been a recent study that showed that, of employers in the United States, that showed that employers were more interested in people having skills in thinking, communicating, and problem solving than they were in the major that people had. So those are my two stories about the arts and humanities, for now. So let me go on and say a little bit about faculty, because really faculty are your guides to becoming world wise. The faculty, I told you, we're always looking for the best and brightest people around the world. Faculty are, you know them most, or people think of them oftentimes as teachers, and they are that, but they are scholars. They are scholars, they are experts in their field, and one of the reasons that the best teachers are the best scholars, because they are creating new knowledge, they are learning what the newest things are that are going on in their field, and they are sharing that with students in exciting ways. And you're going to have an opportunity in a little bit to experience that, but I wanted to focus a little bit on the research and scholarship side of faculty, because that's not something people see and know enough or understand enough. When people say research, they think about people in labs pouring things and that's certainly research. But we do a lot of research here, and one of the ways we wanted to promote that in the college was we've done a series of videos about different ones of our faculty and the research that they do. So I'm just going to show you the trailer to this set of videos, so you can, we're moving back and forth.
What is an insight?
Let's start. We really ran through all of this. I thought we had exactly the right pitch.
sort of open up. It begins with an idea. That you just peel back.
All right.
What is an insight?
It's sort of open up.
It begins with an idea. That you just peel back, and peel back. It's a story of our experiences, a story of our identity.
They all wanted to do it, but nobody was telling them how to do it.
It's a conversation with our past, a lens into our future.
We use these technologies without really thinking about them.
It's an expression of our thoughts, an expression of our creativity.
But we don't have that.
I developed a reputation among my colleagues, Mr. Cartier.
It begins with an idea that grows into a revelation.
There was another kind of discourse about race going on in the 1950s that was like, how was it?
8 different sounds, 8 different stories.
So I encourage you to go to the website, to look at the videos, people talk in detail about their work, but it's all, as they say, it begins with an idea. It leads to insight. That is the work of the scholar. So we're going to have 4 of our outstanding faculty, scholar, teachers interact with you now and give you a chance to experience both how their scholarship translates into the classroom, and also they're going to share their passion by sharing what they do and why they do it. One of the things, and I think you noticed kind of on the back of the program, it says something about finding your passion. That's one of the things we want to encourage you to do, and faculty are the people who have found their passion and they want to help you find yours. So today we're going to have, I'm going to introduce them to you, and then they're just going to come and do their thing. So once I sit down now. So now I think the order changed, and I didn't change my mind. So Professor Susan Dwyer is a professor in the Department of Philosophy. She received her PhD in philosophy from MIT. The focus of her primary research is moral psychology. She also has ongoing research and teaching interests in the intersection of law, public policy, and moral philosophy, transitional justice, and moral psychology. I think I meant to say moral philosophy, not moral, but she does do moral psychology as well, and feminist theory. Okay. All right. Second will be Professor Scott Reese from the School of Theater, Dance, and Performance Studies, where he directs the Theater and Performance Cluster. Professor Reese received his MFA in directing from Northwestern University. He specializes in directing in Black theater and performance and in musical theater. He has professional theater credits which include productions from Los Angeles to New York. He has television credits which include daytime dramas, situation comedies, variety specials, and commercials. And in this area, he has credits at the Kennedy Center, Arena Stage, Strathmore Music Center, and many, 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 many others that I can't. Following him will be Professor Gabrielle Strauss, who's from the German department in the School of Languages, Literatures, and Cultures. Her research interests and publications are in the area of German medieval studies, cultural studies, literature for young adults, and minority literatures. She is also Associate Director of the School of Languages, Literatures, and Cultures, where she focuses on curricular matters, on outreach, recruitment, retention, advising, and educational initiatives for undergraduates, including study abroad. That's part of becoming a global citizen. More recently, she has developed study abroad programs in Germany and in Cameroon. And then finally, the cleanup hitter, so to speak, is Professor Hassan Alahi from the Department of Art. And he is also director of the Digital Cultures and Creativity program in the Honors College. He is an interdisciplinary artist whose work examines issues of surveillance, citizenship, migration, transport, and borders and frontiers. His work has been presented in numerous exhibitions around the world, and he is frequently in the media and has been covered by such diverse venues as the New York Times, Forbes, Wired, CNN, Al Jazeera, Fox News, and the Colbert Report. So these are our local lots. So it's really my pleasure to introduce our faculty, and we'll begin with Professor Sudla.
Well, good morning, and let me add my welcome to that order and our dean. It's wonderful to have you here. So I fell in love seriously for the first time in my life at university, and it wasn't with a boy. It was with logic, oddly enough. And I'm still in love with it 30 years later. So I want to try and share with you some of the excitement of philosophy, because if you were like me, students in the room have no idea what philosophy really was until you get to university, so you may have no idea about whether or not you want to study it. So let's begin at the beginning. Philosophy has the reputation, and it's a true reputation, of being the foundation of all of the disciplines. Way back when here, before the Common Era, we have Plato on one side, Aristotle on the other. Philosophy is the foundational discipline. Psychology doesn't split off until the late 19th century. The natural sciences don't split off until somewhere around the 17th century. So we've been at this longer than anyone else. What are the kinds of things that philosophers are interested in? These are some of the questions that we tackle in our research and our teaching. What is knowledge? And can I have it? How do words have meaning? Why does the word tree actually count trees in the world and not rocks? It's a very interesting question when you think hard about it. Are numbers real? You might think they are, because if any of you know anything about engineering, right? There's a lot of math involved. How do numbers keep bridges from falling down if they're abstract objects, right? Here's another question. Is the mind the same thing as the brain? How many of you seen the Matrix movie? Yeah, right? That, by the way, is stolen completely from René Descartes, a 17th century French philosopher who first poses the mind-body problem. That's where the Matrix comes from. And the field that I'm interested in, moral philosophy, asks these questions. What is morality anyway? And how can we tell the difference between what is morally right and what is morally wrong? That's my area of expertise. But I will not give you any advice today. And it's professional. In any event, what do you notice about these pictures that are here? What seems to be a distinctive feature of being a philosopher? Male. Yeah, what else do I hear? Yeah, the male and the beard, exactly. But philosophy has changed a great deal. And so here are some contemporary philosophers. So the face of philosophy has changed dramatically, as has our engagement with the social sciences and with the natural sciences. So philosophy now is very, very much integrated with these other disciplines. So you think about engineering ethics, you think about the ethics of stem cell research, for example, business ethics, and so on. So I'm going to give you a sense about what might happen if you come to one of my classes in moral philosophy. This is an example of what philosophers call the trolley problem. So here I'm going to describe it to you. The thing there without wheels is supposed to have wheels. I'm sorry, it's a trolley that's coming along the track, and its brakes have failed. And standing on one track is Homer Simpson, and standing on the other track is the Griffin family. Now, Ned Flanders, who you know is Homer's neighbor, is standing at a switch, and he can divert the trolley from one track to the other track. Okay? Right now, the trolley is going to hit the Griffin family and kill them all, including the dog. But Ned Flanders has it in his power to pull the lever and direct the trolley to run over and kill Homer. Now, for reasons we don't need to know, because I'm just stipulating this. This is one of the great things about being a philosopher. You get to stipulate all kinds of stuff, right? They cannot get off the tracks. Someone is going to die. So here's my question to you. Is it permissible for them to pull the lever someone's going to die, better to kill one person rather than 6? And not to mention dog, right? Yeah. Yeah.
I would agree with that.
You would? Okay. You too?
I would agree that you should turn it to homework, but like social contract and stuff would like dictate that you should just let them alone because the chain of command there anyway. So you wouldn't even do it there.
Social contract theory would say that we should leave it alone.
Yeah, like
How so?
if you make the decision to turn it, then you're killing Homer on purpose, right? But if you leave it alone, then it's not your fault that those people die.
Well, you're standing there on purpose, not turning it alone.
Because, like, you took a training, like, you kill Homer, right, to save all the lives. But what if, like, that whole thing was evil?
Excellent. That's the other thing I would like to stipulate. The Griffins and Homer are morally equivalent, right? One is no more evil than the other. Okay. Anyone disagree? Anyone think it's not permissible? Yes?
I would say that if you take out the entire family, then you're not taking just the father and the woman, you're taking the entire family, so it's less people are better clothes.
Oh, I have never heard that answer before.
Children losing their father.
So you just, if someone in the family is going to die, you might as well kill the whole family. That's fabulous. I have never ever heard that answer to the question. Thank you for that. That's great. There was a hand over here somewhere. Yeah.
It definitely complicates things when there's Homer and others.
If they're neighbours, I know, which is unfortunate about this setup. This is the clearest pictorial representation of the topic I could get, so I was a bit worried about these people knowing each other. And I didn't even know that these shows are on the same network, that kind of thing. In any event, most people think, in fact, in empirical studies of this very problem, which have now garnered something like 100,000 responses on the World Wide Web on a site called the Moral Sense Test, if any of you want to take it. About 89% of humans, irrespective of their gender, their age, their religion, their level of education, 89% of respondents say it's permissible to pull a lever. Some people think it's not just permissible, but you must do it. Let's change the case. Now the Griffin family, I don't know why they spend so much time hanging around tracks, but they do. They can't get off the track. There is a bridge over the track. The runaway trolley is coming towards the Griffins. Now Ned is on the bridge with a very large individual who is so large that if Ned pushes him onto the track, he will fall in front of the trolley, stop the trolley before it gets to the Griffins, but of course the trolley will kill him. Who thinks it is permissible for Ned to push the large individual off the bridge? You did. Good, you're consistent. saving 5 and sacrificing 1, right? Anyone think it's not? You think it's not? Why do you think it's not?
It doesn't look great.
It doesn't look great. Yeah, morality is really not that aesthetics, though, is it?
It doesn't feel right.
It doesn't feel right. We have this intuition, don't we? That in this case, it's actually impermissible, apart from good utilitarians, right, who are loyal to always saving the most number of people. But many of us, and again, in the empirical investigation of this, only about 11%, I mean, the figures really are like this, say that it is permissible to push the large individual off the bridge. But do you notice the tension there? In the one case, everyone goes, yeah, of course Ned can pull the lever and kill 1 in order to save 5. And in this case, we go, whoa, no, right? So what explains that difference? That's, in fact, where some of my research lies, and it is a still unsolved problem in moral philosophy that is explaining our different moral responses to these things. What we do know, and I don't mean to embarrass you, what's your name?
Riley?
Right, I don't mean to embarrass Riley. What we do know from empirical, this interdisciplinary research I was talking about, is that if you're an alcoholic, if you are a psychopath, And if you have frontal brain damage, you are more likely to say, it's okay to push the button. But I'm sure none of those things, you may just be a utilitarian. In any event, why do we judge these cases differently? Is it always better to say more people, well, not obviously, because otherwise you think it would be okay to push a large individual off. Is it the case that we think we must never violate a person's right to life? Not obviously, because in the first case we think it's permissible to run over Homer. So big plus. What I want to emphasize is these questions are not merely academic questions. Is it ever permissible to abort a human fetus? Is it permissible to torture a suspected terrorist in order to get information? Is it permissible, as people in Florida seem to think, to shoot someone who comes onto your property? And is it permissible for doctors to assist their terminally ill patients die? A question that is at the forefront of a lot of debate about healthcare right now. So in the philosophy department, we will teach you how to have the courage to confront these real issues in systematic ways. And I hope that you, when you come to our philosophy classes, fall in love as deeply as I did. Thanks so much.
Sure. I don't need the mic. But I need to have all of these students up on their feet. All right. And now I need to see the same students up on the stage. All right. Up on the stage. Both sides. Up on the stage. All right. Any students under 25. Find a place on the stage anywhere. Lay down on the stage. There you go. Get on the back. Probably very familiar since most of you guys are probably not up for 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning, correct, parents? Right? Yes. So now you're in your comfortable position, and what time of the morning is it? What time is it? Okay, this is the position you usually see them in this time, right? Okay. I'm going to be conducting many of the classes that we have in theater are taken by non-majors. Two of our most popular classes are Theater 110, which is Introduction to Theater, and also Acting for Non-Majors. So you're in one of these classes now, you can choose whichever one you want to be in. All right, I want you to uncross your legs, uncross your arms, hands and arms to the side, yes, exactly. Look up at the ceiling, close your eyes, wrists down, touching the floor. If you have your hands at the side, great, good. Doing a quick relaxation. Think of a white light that is going into your head. Think of a white triangle coming down into your head. If I step on you, I'm sorry in advance. Have that white light come into your head, and then you're going to let it go into your forehead, into your eyes. Relax your nose, relax your cheeks, relax your cheekbones, relax your lips. We keep a lot of tension in our jaw. I just want you to move your jaw back and forth a little. Let all that tension out. Good. And then down to your chin and down to your neck. Let that white light go into your chest. From your chest, let it go into your stomach and your sternum, each of your ribs. Relax all of that. Into your pelvis, into your thighs. Let that white light keep going down into your knees, into your shins, into your toes. Wiggle your toes a little bit. In your shoes, there you go. Into your heels, back up on the backside, into your ankles, into the back of your legs, into your thighs, into your buttocks. Squeeze your buttocks, let all that tension and release. Good, your lower back. From your lower back into your shoulders, keep a lot of tension there. Also into our upper back, in the back of our neck, the back of our head, bringing it back up to the top of our head, and that white light all the way through your body, like little race cars, all the way through your body. Take a big breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Another big breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Think of all the tension about being in high school, being in a new place, graduating, or being a junior, going into your senior going into your college years. Think of all that and just let all that stress let go and just be yourself for today. This is one moment that you don't have to do anything but just be here. All right, then very gently come back into the room. And very slowly roll over on one of your sides and then sit up in cross-legged position. All right, and put your right hand behind your head. Good, your other right hand, good, there we go. And you're going to cross down to your left knee. And up, and on my feet, and down, up, down, up, down. Up on my feet, down, up, opposite arm, and down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Good, up on your feet. Hands above your heads. Okay, and drop your right wrist, left wrist. Right elbow, left elbow. Right shoulder, left shoulder. Both arms. Neck, waist, knees. Shake it out. And now it's done. Good. And very slowly, one vertebrae at a time. Slowly, slowly, slowly. Like the waking dead. Slowly, 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 all the way up. Your head is going to be the very last part to come up. Good. Next we're going to do is a shakedown. Some of you might have done it. If you haven't, that's okay. You're all smart. You're all here. What's going to happen is you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All the way down, foot, foot. And 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 7, 6, 6, all the way down. We're going to skip one number. What number we're going to skip? What number? There's no right answer here. Just what number do you want to skip? 2. Very good. All right. And 1, 2. Oh, now I want to hear everybody. And outside voices. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know you know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1. Okay. Now we need to count off.
1, 2,
3,
4, 5,
6, 7.
8,
9.
7,
Skip 11.
13,
15,
16.
17,
18, 19,
20, 21, 22,
23.
Okay. 1 to 11 over here, 12 to the desk over here. All right, you guys are going to arrange yourself through age. You guys are going to arrange yourself through shoe size. Go. All right, we're getting over here. 1 more minute. Come on, get it together. All right, take 5 steps closer to each other. Yeah. All right, and let's tell us who we are.
Riley.
Nope. What do we rate yourself by?
Oh, she says.
There you go.
I vary like 4.5, 5-ish.
7.5,
8, 9.5.
Okay, now rate yourself by height. No, you already are. Okay. And
16,
17.
okay, rate yourself by favorite movies. Go. Rate Favorite movie? Favorite movie? Nope, Matt. Decide how many options, how to make it rain.
Comedy, action.
Realism over there.
Comedy.
All the way over there.
Action.
Like right here.
Yeah. Is there anyone that just likes
It's completely different worlds. This is before.
just action?
32 seconds to go.
You go to the front.
And all right, you guys, we're almost here again. Come on, 18. You can do it. All right, you guys got it.
No, comedy.
Okay, let's bring ourselves closer here. Good. All right, we'll let you guys go first. Favorite movies? What is it? How do we arrange ourselves?
This side is like action, and then over there's comedy, and here's in the middle.
Okay, so tell us what it is.
I'm not sure.
What's your movies? Oh, you.
But
That's okay. Then let's see. Then spread out through the genre, so we see what they break off as. So, what's the genre that you guys are?
We're action.
Okay.
We're action comedy.
Okay.
we're comedy.
Good. All right.
Like more realistic towards more like fantasy.
Okay.
So like I'm a documentary.
Good.
Like comedy. Fantasy.
All right, this is incredible. This is the first time that people didn't pick specific movies. And this is A, thinking out of the box, thinking amongst yourself. And as Professor Dean Gill said, we encourage this kind of thing. There's no right or wrong answer. In the very beginning, as we were doing that, just everything had to be right? And then I said, there's no right or wrong to this. A, as long as you have a thought, we encourage the thought process. Everybody, thank you so much. You can have a seat. I'm out of time, so I'm just going to tell you quickly a little bit about these exercises. Whenever you're doing any of the classes in the arts, it always starts with a warm-up. Why a warm-up? What do you do for the relaxation here? Why did I have you guys all lay down on the floor and relax? Say it again? Yeah, what else?
To get us loose.
Exactly. You come into every class with tension, yesterday's events, yesterday's tests. You can't create from a tense body. It has to be relaxed body. Then from that, the same thing physically. We are doing this all day long, correctly? And this all day long. By relaxing and letting your body start moving, you can function once again. And the last part was just, so many times you're going to be working in group projects, and that's usually one of the things many of my students hate the most is when you put them in a group project. Why? Why do you not like group projects? Accountability. You have the A students like all y'all here, and you have the slackers. And what happens? Who starts doing all the work? Yeah, and it's your job as a college student to figure out, because you're going to be doing a lot of that process. Instead of fighting it, you learn how to become an ensemble leader. And all the ensemble leaders that you see here that you'll meet today are those people that rise to the occasion. So, theater, music, dance, all that kind of stuff. Good to see you. I think I'm turning it on over to you. Thank you.
Okay, we're starting with first of all, guten Morgen.
Guten Tag.
Okay, everybody, it's a German lesson here. Guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
French, bonjour. Bonjour. Buen dias. Buen dias. Ni hao. Ni hao. I think that's all I know.
started this venture yet, and for those of you who are doing it right now, to continue it. So, why do I need to learn another language? And I'm from Germany, and I hear this all the time. Well, everybody speaks English. I don't need to learn any other language. English is the most common language in the world. I would never go to France or China or any other foreign country, so I'm going to stay right here in the United States. I don't need to learn another language. And also, I don't want to become a language teacher or an interpreter, and I don't think I need it for a job. So instead of arguing with you, I decided to go to the philosophers. And this is a wonderful quote, at least I think. Die Grenzen meiner Sprache bedeuten die Grenzen meiner Welt. We have the translation here, and this is by Ludwig Wittgenstein, an Austrian philosopher. So I'm putting this statement to a test. No French here. Yes, can you translate this?
Forbidden access, nuclear
Waste. And so that's the sign that these two people see, and one says to the other, I say the hell with it. If it can be said in English, it ain't worth saying at all. So their ignorance is leading them right beyond their universe, maybe into death. Another quote by Nelson Mandela, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. But if you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. So the connections with human beings is a connection that's much deeper than through the head. All right, let me talk about my school. So what languages do we teach? And I actually have to say, not just languages, but literatures and cultures. So this is Arabic, obviously, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. We don't distinguish between South and North Korean as one language, but German. Anybody understands why I have three flags here? What? Why? Yeah.
Because you have a German-speaking language.
That's right. So in Switzerland and in Austria, they speak German. Spanish, same situation in Spain, but also in South American countries. French, again, Switzerland, and then Cameroon, which stands for all the Francophone countries where they speak French. Russian, Italian, and Persian. And do you recognize those two flags? To the right, Portugal, wonderful. Who did say that? Excellent. Portugal, and so Portuguese, and to the right? No? Hebrew. So in total we have 10 majors and 12 majors in the school. So in addition to teaching the academic subject matter, we also have extracurricular programs to allow students to practice what they're learning. So we have a language partner program where we match students with international students. Our language learner are being matched with international students. So right here to the left, that's actually Jean from the Côte d'Ivoire speaking with a French major, and here is our students who are learning Arabic with native speakers of Arabic. We also have the Language House, which is a wonderful facility here on campus. It's a living learning immersion program. What that means is that we have about 100 students who are in 10 language classes living in suites. So there is a French suite, a Chinese suite, Hebrew, and what have you. And they, in order to be accepted into the Language House, you have to have intermediate language proficiency so that you actually have enough language to communicate. And you have to promise, you have to sign in blood that you will speak that language and only that language. And you can see that over half actually of our students in the Language House are double majors. And these are some of the combinations of the double majors. And I was talking to a parent earlier. Any combination that you can dream of is possible. Here are a couple of pictures of the language, what's happening in the Language House, the Chinese cluster doing calligraphy. At the bottom here is the French mentor. She actually happened to be from Cameroon, and there's the Italian cluster cooking dinner. And I also thought I put this slide in because it shows you that our language house students are really smart students, and they win awards and prizes galore. Then we also ask our students to give back. So they learn with us, but they're also bringing their knowledge to the community or to the schools. And we have a program that's been going strong with the Children Elementary School not far from here. And this is a after-school enrichment program. And so you can see a couple of pictures. It's the picture of the end of semester extravaganza, where the parents come and they get to see what their kids learned during that one semester. And to the right, she's really happy to have received a certificate. We also have in place several support programs. Again, we know that students have lots of challenges, but we are also thinking about the fact that after they finish with us, they're looking for careers and they're looking to start a job. So we have an annual language career and internship fair. And in the middle, the picture shows you that we also have some fun bringing into the language community the new students. So in the fall, we have this ice cream social. And this is a picture that shows you where our students study abroad. So you have the world here and the countries that are listed here. But if a student wants to go anywhere else, they can work with the Education Abroad Office, and we can facilitate that as well. Okay, so last question, or maybe second to last question. Why study a language? What are the benefits to you? So I'm going back to Wittgenstein, who said, the limits of my language are the limits of my universe. So learning a language is really about expanding your universe. To know only one language is limited, because this is the only way for you to think is through one language, and that doesn't, sometimes it's really helpful to know how other people use language, how they use concepts, and so you can apply that to your own world. So we can read those, but I think the last one is important, to challenge yourself. This is me as Hawaii. I think you may recognize me, if only by the red glasses there. So if you look at this picture, just looking at the people who are here, those are actually friends of mine, and we were celebrating my birthday. And so just looking at the faces of the folks that are there, what languages do you think are represented there? I mean, this would be kind of stereotypical, but what kind of languages do you think are there? Like here, what kind of language? It could be Japanese, it could be, in this case, it's actually Chinese, so this is mother and daughter. What about these two here? Stereotypical thinking, maybe, no? Latina. These are my two, not only two, but Latina friends. So they speak Spanish. These two speak Yiddish. She speaks French. She's from Gabon. There is somebody from Taiwan. So there is Chinese again. So this, just to show you that in my own life, these are the languages that I speak. Some of them very well. Others I am actually just learning here, Chinese. I've been traveling to China for professional reasons. And last time I was there, I said, I'm sick and tired of not being able to understand anything. I have to rely on translators. So now I'm studying Chinese, and I got a scholarship to go to China this summer for 3 months. So again, also going back to Nelson Mandela's quote, for me, in my personal and in my professional experience and career, I have learned that by being able to go up to somebody and say, bon dias or bonjour, I mean a little bit more than that, I really can reach people in different ways. And I think that's one of the major messages I want to leave with you. And that knowing another language opens me up to new cultures and to connect directly. I don't have to rely on a translator. And then finally, you will be able to be a global citizen, and this is actually what Bonnie Gill said as well. You will be able to navigate more than one culture. And even in these United States, you know that on a daily basis. You meet with people who speak different languages, and it helps you to understand the United States better as well. Broaden your mind, become an insider, understand yourself, your culture, and your language better. So, auf Wiedersehen. Thank you.
Morning, folks.
And you have a little homework assignment here, okay?
Good morning, folks. Hi, I'm Hassan Elahi. I'm in the Department of Art here. I'm an artist. And I also direct the Digital Cultures and Creativity program, which is one of the 2 honors college programs supported by the College of Arts and Humanities. And just to give you an idea, we're 136 students within this massive university of 38,000 students. And we literally just cover almost every corner of the campus here. Well, we're in this same building right across the street. And just in our building, we have 38 different majors coming from all different perspectives. We have 29 languages spoken in our building, which is actually pretty impressive. It's an incredible range of diversity of students. And one of the things about our program is that, well, and not just me, also just how I came about it, is that, I was that kid in high school that I had like 200 something credits and nothing to make a degree in. And I'm sorry, in college I had like 200 credits. I never finished high school, I just kind of just left. So, and I never got a GED, so my high school considers me a dropout. I'm not encouraging that, but one of the things that happened is through that process, I ended up like literally switching majors every other semester. So I seriously lost count of the number of universities I'd actually gone through until I got my degree. That's kind of scary for my parents here. But I think one of the things that happened is in this process, I've learned a lot about a little bit of here, a little bit there, a little bit there, this incredibly broad range of things. And one of the things that happens is, and so this allowed me to bring a perspective to DCC, or Digital Cultures and Creativity, about that what does not exist. That is pretty much our tagline that we use. How can we come up with something that does not exist? How do we come up with thinking about things that are so far in the future, or maybe not even that far, but so far culturally in the future, that we're not even thinking in those terms. And that's I think some of the things that's happening right now, is that we want students to make those decisions, to come up with those future ideas. Anyway, so I'm going to go through a couple of projects. So how the arts, or actually, in this case, how an artist can actually have a broader impact. So this is a project by Michael Neymar back in between 1978 and 1980. It's called the Aspen Movie Map. And you can see Michael getting up on a Jeep up there with a film, I think it was a video camera back then. And then one of the earliest video cameras in 1978 for use. And then he drove up and down Aspen, filming every street. And at that time, people looked at him and said, why would you want to do this? What's the rationale? Why in the world would you want to film every street going up and down? And then he created the software. He was part of the first, I think so, the architecture group at MIT, which then now is known as the Media Lab. And then, come 2007, you got Google Street View. Looks familiar, doesn't it? I mean, take a look at that. I mean, it's uncanny, the similarities between these two. Again, he didn't exactly intend on developing Google Street View. But the artist gives this idea, and that idea then is taken further and further and further. And then next thing you know, it's not even art anymore. I mean, I don't think any of us would actually consider Google Street View a work of art. But it just, so, I'm really interested in art that is no longer considered art. So in a single way, I'm a really big fan of art that barely passes for art. So this is Mel Chin, and I really admire his work. And Mel, in 1990, was working on this public art project in a toxic dump outside Minneapolis. And he came up with this idea that there's these plants that are attracted to these dioxins and these kinds of metals. And so, of course, him being the artist, not the biologist and the scientist, gets together a few community folks, they dress up in toxic lab suits, and of course he runs it by scientists, and the scientists are like, okay, yeah, that's a cute idea, this will never work. So he came up with this idea that possibly that these flowers or these plants that are attracted to these metals, if you plant them there, they will clean the soil. Anyway, so they went out and they planted these things, and everyone was skeptic about this. And sure enough, after they harvested, it's actually a type of sunflowers they harvested. And after they cut them down, once they burnt the stalks, they realized there were chunks of metal inside the plants. And this process is now used by scientists for ecological cleanup throughout the country. Another project, this is probably the most amazing one. So after Hurricane Katrina, Mel was asked to come to New Orleans as a think tank, what can people do? A lot of artists were brought to New Orleans to rethink different ways of how can we come up with different ideas, just anything. There was so much devastation and desperation that it's like, what can we do? So Mel went down there and says, this is way beyond my scope, I can't do anything. And he went back home and they did some research on this, and then he realized that the problem in New Orleans was way before the storm hit, and it was lead poisoning. The level of lead poisoning in some of the soil in New Orleans is thousands of times beyond the actual limit. In certain countries have like 3 parts per million, 10 parts per million. I think in the US, the legal limit is like 80 parts per million. But there are certain parts in New Orleans that have 2,000 parts per million. And lead poisoning, which actually is, it is possible to treat the soil for lead poisoning. But lead poisoning leads to brain damage, which leads to violent behavior, and needless to say, New Orleans is one of the most violent cities with the highest crime rates and so on. Anyway, so he attributed this to the lead in the soil. So of course he's working with some scientists and saying, hey, we need to replace the entire soil of New Orleans before we rebuild it. And you can only imagine the scale of this city. I mean, how do you replace every patch of soil in this entire city? And of course, you can only imagine what it would cost. So eventually he talks to policy folks and some scientists, and they're like, no, this is just a ridiculous project. But he said, no, how much money do you need? How much money do we need to do this? And they're like, a lot of money. And eventually they agreed on $300 million as being the average. It will cost roughly $300 million. So of course, Mel, being the artist and not the banker, says, I will bring you $300 million. Yeah, and so he gets together with these with schools all over the country. It was done with the National Art Education Association. And each student drew a $100 bill. There's a template you can download from funded.org, and you can draw. It doesn't have to be just school kids. It can be adults as well. It's predominantly all school kids. There's been a few celebrities that have done this as well. And you draw a $100 bill, and then there's 2 sides of it. You send it in, and basically, you send it to your local collections center, which is often the school, and he has an armored truck that drives from one end of the country to the other, picking up these $100 bills. And essentially the plan is, and he's very close to this, to get $300 million in hand-drawn notes, bring this to Congress and ask for an even exchange. So is this art? Is this community activism? Is this social organizing? We're not even sure what this is. But we know that it's made an incredible impact. And you can see some of the walls of drawings of these $100 bills. You can see some of these kids hanging out with these stacks of this money. Anyway, let's switch a little bit back to my work. A few years ago, about 10 years ago, I got reported as a terrorist, and had to spend like 6 months of my life justifying with the FBI, trying to explain every moment that no, I'm not really a tourist. I'm a tourist, not terrorist. The words got a little screwed. Anyway, so long story short. After 6 months and 9 visits to polygraphs, the FBI, I said I was okay. I was like, I know I'm okay. Guys, I've been trying to tell you that I'm okay. Can you get, I said, can I get a letter saying I'm okay? And the problem is that you can't be not guilty of something you never did. So ever since then, they said, well, we can't give you a letter, but if you get into trouble, give us a call. We'll take care of it. So before I would go anywhere, I would call an FBI agent and tell them what I was doing. And I would give them all sorts of details, not because I had to, but because I chose to. And so I'd say, hey, this is where I'm going, this is where my flights are. And then the phone calls then slowly turned to emails, and the emails turned to longer emails, and the longer emails got to really, really, really long emails. And then back in about 10 years ago, I wrote this little clunky code for my phone, which I guess these days would be called an app, but now, the word app wasn't even in the common vocabulary at the time. But I turned my old phone into a tracking device that would essentially monitor and say exactly where I was. Again, all voluntary. And people looked and like, you're crazy. Why would anyone want to tell anybody where you're at and give me these images? And you can get a map to where I am. You can see, who I'm with and everything else. And this is a screenshot from it. You just go to if you go to my site, which is ilahi.org, my last name.org, or you can just throw it to Google and it'll pop up. And so I created this, but just to put things in perspective, 10 years later, you're all doing this. Anyone that's on any sort of social media site, every time you're uploading a photo, every time you're checking in on Foursquare, every time you're tweeting, it's all geotagged and such. So it's kind of ironic that this project that started out as an art project, which actually I met with a lot of these telecom companies at the time, 10 years ago. They said, no, this is something we would never get involved in. But ironically enough, now there's 1 billion people just on Facebook doing this alone. So in order to wrap up, I think a lot of times when we create works in the arts, I think one of the things that we do is that we're thinking of these things and problem solving in very different ways. I have this amazing life where I have this half a foot in the sciences and technology and another foot in the arts, and be able to have that perspective of solving problems in multiple ways. And sometimes that most direct route may not be the most interesting or most effective. And sometimes in order to have a really effective route, we may need to go around it a few times here and there, and sometimes circle around it a couple of times. And by doing that, we have a much more wider and clearer picture of the situation. So I'm going to leave it at that. I know that we have some student presentations coming up, so thank you very much. And we'll look forward to having lunch with you folks. And you guys have some questions? Okay, great. Thank you.
I just love our faculty. We're going to invite them up to the front of the stage and have 2 sets of question and answer in case you all want to talk to our faculty about discipline or presentations or other things. Well, good reason. Don't be shy.
We have some house lights. Is anybody in the back? We can see everybody's faces since you can kind of see ours. No?
Yeah, they just.
All right, good night, everybody. First, tell us what your name is.
Orlando Davis, and this is a question for you, Mr. Reese. Can you tell me about the musical theater program?
Sure. What would you like to hear about it?
Just like the courses that are offered for it.
Okay. First of all, how do you call it, musical theater program? We, as a liberal arts school, we subscribe to the philosophy of training the whole actor, so everybody that comes into theater, dance, performance studies, you don't have to audition to be a major. That you become a major, then you audition for subsequent classes. So for the musical theater program, you take your basic acting classes, and then you audition for musical theater workshop. There's 2 courses that you go through. First, late 19th century to the 1960s, and then the 1960s to the present. So the late 19th century starts out with operettas, and then goes into, that's Gilbert Sullivan, Bob Canby, that kind of stuff. Then you go into vintage musicals, which is Joan Kern, Gershwin, Cole Porter. Then you go into the golden age musicals, which almost everybody knows, Roger Hammerstein, blah, blah, blah. And then the contemporary period, probably not contemporary for you, ancient history now, starting in the 1960s, is the pop rock musicals, then you go in the 70s, the Andrew Lloyd Webber, the Air, all that kind of stuff. Then the big British invasion of the helicopters coming through the sets and the chandeliers. What's helicopter? The Saigon, and which are doing at the Signature Theater this summer in Arlington. And then going into the 80s pop rock musicals and then contemporary. So by the time that you get out and in musical theater workshops, you work on all your audition songs, scenes, scene study, sight reading, all that kind of stuff. And usually it's about a 2-year program that you do with all the different courses. And we usually have not just theater majors, but non-theater majors and a lot of opera students that start out on opera and then do musical theater also. And then every year there's a musical theater showcase at the Kennedy Center, which you're all invited this May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, 6 o'clock at the Kennedy Center stage, where the students all perform at the Kennedy Center, and you go on the web to see it also. And along with that, we do a musical every other year, and then there's your student musical every year through the Terrapin Theater Troupe. And this next year we're doing Spring Awakening, which most of you guys probably know, that musical. And then students that are interested also take private voice lessons usually in the music department and take dance classes in the dance department. But we want actors that sing and dance and do everything like the British school, as opposed to just do musical theater. We want you to be Audra McDonald's winning 8 Tonys. We want you to be Norm Lewis being on Scandal as an actor, not just being an ensemble member.
I just want to add that in order to take a language class, you don't have to audition.
Mary, we have some questions. I saw some hands. Well, that's good.
I have a question for Hassan. My daughter's interested in majoring in art. What other courses would she take? Like, I know the first year is general, but as an art major, and she wants a double major, what do people generally double major?
It's actually quite common for our students to be double majors, and it's a BA program, and one of the things being a BA program, not necessarily a BFA program, is that we want the student to have a broader experience in the liberal arts at the university. So by having this experience, so you'll take, Art 100 and Art 110, those are the basic general ed courses, are the basic arts foundation courses. But in addition to that, there's a really strong liberal arts component that is relatively common across the undergraduate curriculum here. And a lot of those, we do want the students to have courses in the history of the arts or in reasoning. What are those core requirements?
General education.
Because we just changed it this year.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking it's HAI.
Right.
What,
So I'll take it. Go ahead, yeah. So we also, in addition to the major, students will have what we call general education requirements. And those are designed to make sure students are well-rounded and have a broad exposure to multiple disciplines across the campus. And so they'll take courses in the humanities, the sciences, and the social sciences, if you will. And so that's creating the BA, that's giving them the well-rounded exposure across the board. They also have fundamental studies and courses in diversity, cultural development, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's it's a very strong curriculum. So students have a wonderful opportunity to use those courses in general education to decide if they might want to double major. So if you're taking a course maybe in engineering, or you can fulfill the general education requirement, you might also decide, might be a double major or a minor. So,
if I can add to that, one of the things about the difference between one of the reasons that we very intentionally stuck with the BA program and not with the BFA program is that the BFA program, in order to be an accredited BFA program, you have to have something like 70 or 90 credits. And it just does not give enough space in the curriculum to have a broader education and to take advantage of the rest of the university. And also, frankly, a double major with the BFAs, just credit-wise, just the numbers don't add up very easily.
Okay. One more time. So back here, blue shirt, blue jacket.
My name is Sarah. I have a question for the philosophy professor. Philosophy, I don't see many kids going into philosophy. I don't know why that is. I think it's a really interesting field. Can you tell me how you decided to go into it?
It was actually completely by accident. I switched. I originally wanted to be a pathologist long before CSL. That's what I wanted. And then I had a disastrous first year at college. So I actually I shared that with my undergraduates. I have F's on my transcript, right? But ended up with a PhD from MIT. So everyone can kind of turn around eventually. But I changed. It was just the wrong thing for me. And so I started exploring some things in the humanities area. And I did. I just went to my first logic class, and when you've ever had this experience amongst a group of friends, for example, and you just feel completely at home. Wow, there are other people who think like this. And then I was very quickly introduced to the mind-body problem, which is, if you've seen The Matrix, you know how disturbing that is. And those questions have never left me. They just gripped me. But we have about 190 majors in philosophy, about 100 minors. Many of our students double. We have one of the best philosophers two of the best philosophers of physics, for example, in our department in the world. We have people who do philosophy of art. We have people like me who do stuff at the intersection of politics and public policy, law, and philosophy. We have leading cognitive scientists in our department. So we have people doing philosophy and psychology as a double major. So I think when people find out about philosophy, I like to say if you're smart, you can't help but fall in love with it, and because it really, really does. How can I put it? Yeah, these are these questions that keep you up at 3 o'clock at night, but it also gives you the skills to address those questions. So nothing ever in your life will ever scare you again, because you're mentally tough.
The Richard?
For theater professor, is there a way to get involved in crew?
Oh my God, yes. Come on in. It's, being a theater major, non-theater major, a lot of you guys have probably done theater, and you might not be majoring in it, but you still want to do it. Crew positions are always open. It's kind of the home that you make for yourself, and you can do whatever you want with crew, and technical, makeup, hair, wardrobe, fly, everything. And it's getting more computer-based also, so a lot of the stuff with digital technology and digital scenery and that kind of stuff that we're doing. And I should just say, that a lot of the people that are in the theater program, we also have a lot of outside student groups like Erase Bowling, which is an improv group, Sketch with a sketch comedy group, Therapy Theater Troupe, which is a musical theater group, Shakespeare Theater Group. So a lot of students find they loved it in high school, tried it and didn't have, but still wanted to be involved in it. So there's a lot. Oh, and acapella is huge here at the campus, as everybody knows. Jumping up and down. So you can major in it, not major in it, minor in it, but still there's so many opportunities with students. And I think sports on a big campus like this, where you have 38,000 students, they find it being a home in these groups that they do. Does that answer? Yes. Come and see me, we always need great people.
Yeah, someone in the middle, there we go.
Is a portfolio needed for an art portfolio needed for admission?
I'm sorry.
An art portfolio?
No. The only time the portfolio is recommended is for certain scholarships in Europe, but for admissions, no.
Okay. Now, the scholarships you mean like in following years, or even?
We do have a couple of scholarships that we've given to incoming students.
Right. There's the CAPA scholarship, which is one of the most prestigious scholarships for both the performing arts as well as the creative arts, visual arts. There's a portfolio review, you can go online and there's an explanation of how you okay.
Is there a major planned in either digital media or film production? I've seen online rumors of that.
Well, we do have a major in film studies now, but it's brand new, just this fall it started, but it's not about film production, it's really about theory of film history. I think we're thinking maybe going into the production, but again, more video production, things that are more low cost. I'm looking at the dean because that's where the money is.
Well, I will say that we have a lot of people doing work around the campus in digital media. And so one of the things that we talk about, I'm sure some of you have read the newspapers about the University of Maryland going into this, considering a partnership with the corporate gallery and school. And one of the things that we've talked about that might be an outgrowth of that would be some kind of digital program that involved them and here and digital media that we might work on together. So that's kind of a few years off, but it is something we're thinking and talking about.
And also, if I can add to that, one of the things that's really happening in a lot of film, in digital cultures and creativity, the program that we have at the Honors College, we have a very strong focus in this idea of expanded cinema. And we have a course called expanded cinema. And one of the things about film is that you're always going to have really strong core documentaries or narratives or dramas. But we're really interested in that fringe, the stuff that barely passes for film. And that's what's really helping expand the discipline and the genre itself. So we're kind of hovering around that on the outsides of it. And I think in VCC we're doing it very well. We have several work groups in it right now. Some faculty and students are involved in it. But again, they're not film in the traditional sense of film, but they're a very different way of looking at ideas of film and really broadening that definition of film. So there's a lot of things going on in digital media through that. And again, I think the entire film industry is drastically changing on a daily basis too right now. So in that sense, it's not necessarily, if we start training students for Hollywood, that model may not exist 3 years from now or 5 years from now. It's going to be completely different.
Hey, can I just back up on your question? Why were you asking that question?
It was a major we were.
Or what, young lady, what's your question?
Oh, no, she didn't.
Yeah, what was?
Well, my question was different, but she's interested in literary, creative writing, and film production, so we were wondering about the film production part of it.
Yeah, because in theater we have a lot of students that go into film and go into TV from this, and they said, should we be going to film school? And I started out in TV, and categorical no. Why? Because what you learn right now is going to be so out of sync with what's going on right now that you can do a film on your iCamera right now, your iPhone. If you look at the Duplass brothers, do you know the Duplass? You should know Mark Duplass, Tiny Furniture, and anyway, they did a big film with lots of money, got nothing, they did a $3 film on the camera, got into Sundance. And kind of learned that and he was a jazz musician, Mark Duplass, and was trying to do all the stuff that people said in film school, but then I realized I'm a musician, I create. And I think as Dean Dill was talking about, if you are so specific in your learning, that's going to pass you by. If you're in a place of learning, you're surrounded by creative people, then you're going to have all the skills. And what you're talking about, being both in English and wanting to create, has probably knows one of my colleagues, Jeremy Dry, who's a video projectionist now for theater, which is huge. We brought him in as an adjunct professor because so much digital theater is going on. He works everywhere, so bringing that to our students, he's able to progress them in a way you might not think until you're there doing that. Does that make sense?
I also just want to mention, because as we speak, there's a conference going on in another building here, organized by the graduate students of the School of Languages, Literatures, and Cultures, and it's on popular culture and technology. And so I went yesterday, and the graduate students were giving these papers on video games and modding and all these things. And the faculty, we all looked at each other and said, what are they talking about? I'm joking, but it was like, wow, they're definitely 5 steps ahead of us in terms of the kinds of questions they're asking, the kind of research they're doing that's really intricately connected to their world, to the world of digital learning and knowledge. And so that was really interesting, being driven by, or learning about how the new ideas, the new world is really entering the academia and research.
Very good. You got a question?
My question was really, all college tours we've been on, they talk about internships. And so I'm just wondering, is that within the College of Arts and Humanities, do a lot of students take advantage, do they do internships within their specific field, or is that a difficult thing to work out, or?
The next session is gonna go all into study abroad internships, but yes, they do. Students turn over 12 credits to count for graduation. Internships at the department level within their disciplines, or at the college level, things that might be somewhat related to the major, but not so much, not directly. So absolutely, we encourage it.
And the one example, our students going into the after-school enrichment program, that's an internship. They're doing that in internship. And many students, if you read their evaluations, our students' evaluation, it's an eye-opening experience for them to be in an educational environment, and they really get a wonderful understanding of how education works or doesn't work in this country. And so they also go on to do, for America,
Teach for America.
Because they really got energized to teach.
Also, the area that we're in DC, at least with theater, film, dance, music, that the amount of internships they have is like, oh, we have 3 more at the Kennedy Center. So they're not having to do, how would I say this? We're lucky to be in a prestigious area where it counts. If you're taking a look at internship at the Kennedy Center, internship at Joe's Theater, already you're doing all the right stuff. You're working with professionals.
So we're here and looking forward.
And I'm not sure if it directs you, but can you talk a bit about your creative writers and possibilities for that?
Creative writers, not even English professor. And so we'll talk about the next session. We have a Humanist Porter Writer House representative. And so we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that in the next session. And we have some of our English majors here who can talk about it. We do have internships in the English department and a whole department focus and a minor focus on creative writing.
Yeah, but just think about our faculty, Maud Casey, and Marilyn's own poet laureate, Stanley Tomlin. And, if you take one class in art, you've got to take Stanley's Introduction to Poetry. I took it as a faculty member, and I sat in the front row, and he would say, well, I'll see you next week. It's like, no, you won't see me next week, keep going. It's just wonderful people to meet with and learn from in creative way.
I saw somebody read, yes.
My question is for Mrs. Bly. I'm interested in, well, I have been for a while. I'm interested in like an international affairs or foreign policy type thing, but I'm also drawn to the problem-solving aspect of philosophy. I was wondering if there are people who either choose philosophy as one of the 2 double majors or minor in it, who are looking to do the same thing afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably the government and politics, and which is in the BSOS, which is the
Behavioral and
Social Sciences. The government, politics, and philosophy double major is one of the most popular double majors that we see. Because a lot of our students are interested in going on into law. Philosophy graduates were highest on the LSATs overall, have done for the last several years, 3rd on the MCATs, and 3rd on the GREs. That problem-solving skill we're talking about is something we require in philosophy. So a lot of students who are interested in law, interested in politics, interested in public service, and certainly interested in international humanitarian think tank operations are finding philosophy very useful. The chair of our own department is internationally acclaimed political philosopher. Many of us have interests there. Just to give you a sense, part of my work is in transitional justice, so looking at what happens in countries like South Africa as they try to move past apartheid, and the whole notion of truth and reconciliation. So much so, I wrote a paper as a philosopher just about, well, what's this thing, reconciliation? And the next thing I know, I'm up at Harvard giving a talk to people who are coming from Northern Ireland, coming from Zimbabwe, coming from Guatemala, wanting to talk about what these sort of deep notions of reconciliation. So that was where philosophy really hit the road. And so those are the kinds of contributions you can make. Yeah.
Could you detail for me exactly what a linguistics major encompasses, or how you would compare just double majoring or majoring in minor and anything like that?
We have a Department of Linguistics, so that's a separate unit. So the way I understand it, linguistics is really about understanding how language works, how your brain works when speaking and learning a language. So in the language departments, it's more applied. So we teach the language, students learn the language in order to be able to then to read the literature, to also understand the grammar, the theory of language. So there's some overlap, but it's much more theoretical, focused in linguistics than what we do, certainly in terms of language learning. Does that answer your question? So,
and we have a linguistics major here today, so we can match you up today and we can talk about it in detail. And she's actually in the next session, so she's one of the panelists for the next session. So we'll get you a detailed breakdown, and then we can talk later with Dr. Stroud about how they connect with languages. But language is a part of the linguistics major as well.
But we do have, for example, a partnership with the linguistics department because students in linguistics, there are several tracks, and one track is where they have to have a concentration in a language. So I have advised many German language majors, and we send together linguistics and German students to the university in Kassel in Germany, where they can take courses in linguistics. And if they take those courses in German, then they double count for German as well. So we do have these kinds of partnerships with individual departments to allow our students to have a more expansive experience.
You may have time for one more question.
Yeah, just real quick, because I spent some time yesterday with the Smithsonian as part of my job, and it was incredible to find out those folks aren't just a collection of artifacts anymore. They have really grown. And I think there's a lot that most of us can learn from those folks now where they've gone through. So my question is, with all the great resources in DC, what are the resources that you guys take advantage of? Because I would think being here would be a real advantage.
Yeah, well, I know every semester I take a class I teach on constitutional law and morality to the NRA headquarters in Fairfax, Virginia. and the students meet with one of the NRA lawyers, and they go toe-to-toe with the NRA lawyer about gun policy, for example. So that's one of the things that we can do, and it's very, very easily arranged. I'm sure other people have.
We have one of our professors, Leslie Belvin, has every year a production with the National Portrait Gallery. That the students go down to the Portrait Gallery, this is through her movement course in creating character. They go down, they pick, the students always want to pick the easy person. She helps them pick a more challenging person in the National Portrait Gallery. They create that in their class, and then at the end of the semester, they go down and perform for the audience living portraits of these people.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
I've done this at least 3 times,
Yeah.
and every time it's just exciting. So they stand in front of the portrait that they are representing, and then step out of the portrait and represent that person and tell their story. It's beautiful.
And then through improv, they have to answer any question that audiences might ask them. It's not the adults, it's the 10-year-olds that are asking the hard questions because they really believe it, so there's no filter for it. So, and then with Kennedy Center and with all of the different theaters around here, there's so many projects that are going on all the time.
Same here for the languages. I mean, there are internships that are available, not just the Smithsonian, but in the various embassies or in the cultural institutes. Typically, we organize, or it's the clubs, it's the language clubs that organize a theater, a visit to a theater program, or if there's an exhibit at the Smithsonian on German art or French or whatever. So we do take it.
I dovetail on that. They just had the Nordic Festival here through the Kennedy Center, and then through the House of Sweden, who I have a relationship with. The students were going to embassy events, then they were going. Did anybody go to the Kennedy Center when they had the Nordic Festival? It was almost built up like the Smithsonian. They had events in 3 Nordic houses they built in the lobby, and then if you went in the big lobby, it was a ship made out of shirts. So the students having this kind of, where I went to school in Illinois, we didn't get this kind of opportunity. But you're right, almost every class, you're always doing field trips back and forth downtown and coming back, and same in Baltimore. So you're in the right area.
We have a reputation that we're the public research university for Washington, D.C., essentially.
Yeah.
And I think we do take advantage of that. We are the biggest university in this area, and having that kind of reach, it really has a tremendous impact. So just to give you real practical examples of that, my students in DCC, Digital Cultures and Creativity, it's only a first and second year program, so these are freshman and sophomore students. And last year we did a project, we did an augmented reality project with the National Portrait Gallery. These are 17, 18-year-old students working with them in a public event. This year, we have a year-long project with our Games and Play work group, and we're developing an alternate reality game for the Smithsonian American Art Museum. So again, the kind of opportunities that our students have A lot of it's also because of the reputation of the university that these organizations they trust working with us. I mean, they're not going to just work with just anybody. And I think that's and we also have on an institutional level, we also have a seed grant program between University of Maryland and the Smithsonian for faculty research, which many of the students are involved in.
And you'll hear later in the next session about internships that students are doing at the White House, Capitol Hill, all the arena stage of the different theaters across the board. Our history department is heavily connected to National Archives. So I would say any and everything in DC we have somehow tapped into and connect our students with.
And I just remember the course that I taught 2 years ago, German America in Washington, D.C. And so this was a course where the students, we actually, every other week, we went downtown to D.C. looking at sites, at monuments, at buildings that had some connection to German Americans, mostly in the 19th century. And so one thing that I learned, for example, if you know DC, there's Chinatown today, right? And that used to be Germantown. If you go back there and you look up at the buildings, you'll see German names, still engraved in the building. And what we ended up doing is actually create a brochure for the imaginary Germans coming from Germany to Washington, D.C., wanting to explore the German-American heritage in D.C. So they did these brochures in German. We have them actually, so that was really an interesting research project. I remember one student, government politics and German, he was so excited because he had never heard about Karl Schurz, and Karl Schurz was a really important 19th century senator here who really changed the sort of what's happening what was happening in the Midwest. So that enriched his second major and kept pushing him in a different direction of his studies.
Just in dovetailing on that, and we're talking about internships and right here. A liberal arts education, I always say, kind of doesn't matter what you major in, just get the critical and analytical skills. I went in as a trombone major, I was good for my head, but I wasn't that good. Then went into theater. One of my students, Liz Urenka, she's 28 years old now, she was a government politics and theater major. She is writing the healthcare reform bill. She's the one that's writing it. So a lot of people say, oh, you're a theater major. You don't really know. You're getting an education here. You're writing policy. You're on the Hill with the Smithsonian. So many of our students are interning on the Hill. They're the ones that are making the decisions. Look up Liz Urenka if you ever think lesser about theater majors and what's required.
Okay, so here's the we're going to now give you a break. About a 15-minute break, and then we're going to go to the next session, which is in room 1100, which is in this far corner over here. Just if you're interested, the bathrooms are in this direction. So we'll just, however, wherever you can go, we go here. It's 10:45. So we're going to give a round of applause to our faculty.